Hello and welcome to Impossible Mission. I've got all of the silly intros out of my system. This is the Geek Show's discussion programme about things that are happening around the world of video games in a bit more of a focused, concentrated way than our sister show, News Trash. I am Rob, and as ever, I am joined... I was going to describe you as my better half there, but that'd be an accident. By,
I am your better half.
The producer Prob, also good.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah. Don't know where that came from.
We've been friends and colleagues for too long.
We do get described as an old married couple, but that's what happens when you're friends with someone for a very long time. It just happens.
Yes.
Maybe you want it or not. It just happens, people. I tried to segue out that. Yeah. You know what else just happens? PlayStation doing silly stuff, because, this episode we've suggested and talked around it, many YouTubers have done videos about it, how they basically just rant or complain or moan about what Sony have done recently, in the sense of, if you've been living under a rock, which you might have, and they've essentially decided to close the PlayStation 3, PSP and PS Vita stores in the upcoming months, effectively making those games impossible for anybody to reach. Because, those games become rare, and when games become rare, they become incredibly expensive. So if you want to play a childhood favourite, better get ready to fork in excess of over £100. And that is what is happening. So today, we're going to be talking about a subject related to that, but not in the way that everybody else has. Today, we're going to be talking about games ownership, part 2.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. Back in July last year, we did a video on the future of games ownership. And in that video, we focused mainly on streaming. We focused mainly on streaming services like Google Stadia and stuff like that, and what that meant for the future of games ownership. This time, though, we need to go back to that topic of games ownership, because it is a very relevant topic now that Sony are doing these store closures. I know everyone else is focused on games preservation. Yes, that is a big thing. But I think the most important aspect of this entire scenario that we've found ourselves in is who actually owns the games that you purchase digitally.
Yeah.
And that is an important question, I think, needs to be answered. And it's a question that, to be honest, I think that greater minds than ours need to address, because digital rights ownership is a massive thing. Here's the thing, right? Everyone is so focused on games preservation, and we will touch on games preservation at certain points throughout this discussion. It's inevitable that it's going to be a thing. But I think the legal ramifications of Sony's decision... See, Sony have decided this a long time ago. They didn't just suddenly wake up, yesterday and decide, hey, we're going to close these stores because that's going to be a great idea. Yeah, they obviously knew about this a while ago. And one of the things that we reported in News Trash, and that other agencies have also reported, is that small indie devs, weren't actually informed of the closure of these stores, especially the Vita store.
Just to clarify that, we're not talking about sort of Devolver Digital, we're talking about sort of very, very small operations, teams of like under 5, under 10.
Yeah, we're talking small operations who are basically, maybe they're making the first game, maybe they're making the second or third game, but they're coding specifically for the Vita because there is still a market for games on the Vita.
Yeah.
Right? And so they weren't told. In fact, one of the stories that came out was that one of the smaller devs had actually bought a PS Vita development kit off Sony just the month before Sony made this announcement.
I mean, just on that, the amount of bureaucracy that would go through to make a decision like this, there's levels and Department A talks to Department B, who makes decision C, and then they run it through finance, and if finance gives it the okay, they run it through marketing, they think of ways they can spin it, ways they can announce it, and then somebody rigs it.
Yeah.
So the decision to, reveal this sort of information is taken out of their hands, but at the same time, this all happened. They're through indie developers under the bus entirely. And before we get onto games preservation and games ownership, that shows a staggering disregard for the smaller companies from Sony.
Yeah, it does. And the thing is, because of this news, because of just the way Sony have handled it, lots of PS Vita developers have cancelled their projects for the Vita.
Yeah.
Now, I know Sony wasn't that keen on the Vita. I mean, it only took a couple of years for Sony to completely cool off on the Vita. They didn't really have any hope for it. But that, again, is down to their own lack of vision.
Yeah, but you say they didn't have, like, they used a proprietary, saving system, like memory card or memory or whatever.
The memory card.
But at the same time, they started off with a proprietary memory system. That doesn't mean they have to keep it. They could have easily just made their own, but they didn't. This is the thing. They didn't want to.
They didn't want to. And when everyone is using SD cards, why would you make a modified version of an SD card and then sell it for £50 when people can buy an SD card that has greater capacity for about 30?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
And that was one of the key problems with the Vita early on. And because of that, what you ended up getting on the Vita were all of these Commodore Garden JRPGs. There were a lot of Japanese games on the Vita. Japanese developers really liked the Vita because, as a handheld device, it was one of the most powerful. And a lot of indie devs like it because of the power it affords them. They can basically make games that are a bit more advanced, that are a bit more detailed than they can for other platforms quite easily. And so all of these devs feel like they've been kicked in the teeth because of that. But the big concern that I've got, and that I think is a growing concern now among, it's a big concern for devs as well, and I think it's going to be a growing concern for consumers, is if you as a dev, if you've uploaded a game to the PlayStation Store, right, you've signed a contract that you will only sell, that game is only available through that storefront, yeah?
Yeah.
So you can't sell that game on your own website.
Not on the PlayStation, no.
Yeah, which means, is that contract still binding even if the storefront doesn't exist? Which means you can't sell the game on your own website or on another platform for the Vita.
Well, for the developers, no, they've basically been bound into a corner. They only could sell this thing on the PlayStation 3, PSP, Vita, PS4, PS5 store.
Yeah. So, if you're basically falling into a trap, a contract like that, then what are your legal options? You have no choice but to basically go to court and fight it, or to basically walk away from it. But if you walk away from it, then you're basically soured on developing for Sony, ever again.
Yeah. I think that's one of the hidden byproducts of this. They're going to lose a lot of indie support, and honestly, PlayStation weren't the most majorly supported platform for indie games because even before this, they didn't treat them well.
Yeah, I know.
So this is kind of like as PlayStation being a primary outlet for indie games, that's kind of dead now.
Yeah, I don't understand what the logic is behind this decision, as it seems like a pointless decision, especially when you look at the fact that they're digital storefronts.
Yeah.
It's not a physical shop. They don't have a chain of stores all over the world selling discs and cartridges. They're online digital storefronts. They don't take up a lot of server space.
It's cloud servers, right?
Exactly. So what could have possibly been behind this decision? I don't know. Maybe Sony are working on something to replace those storefronts. Maybe they're gonna release a retro storefront or something like that. I honestly couldn't say. But the question still remains, who owns that game that the developer has actually put up there?
Let's just look at it from different perspectives. A digital movie.
Yeah.
You buy it, whatever the platform is, whether it's through iTunes or Google Play or some third-party outlet. You basically get the file, and you can download the file onto your PC, and you're not tied to the server you used it from. You can watch it wherever you want, whenever you want, whatever device you want. It's yours. It's mobile. It's truly a digital bit of ownership. Music, I'm an avid supporter of Bandcamp. And on Bandcamp, I have an app which I can interact with that music, and I can listen to that music wherever, as long as there's an internet connection. Or I can download it and keep it in my collection. Separate from the platform, separate from the device I bought it from, and it's mine to interact with however I want. But PlayStation don't have that separation. It's either you buy it from their store, and that store is where it'll stay.
But the thing is, Sony will argue, right? And this is something that they will argue, and this is for consumers and developers, because it's consumers as well. Sony haven't actually said. Sony have come up with some instructions on what you can do, but they haven't actually really been clear. Those notifications that they've given are vague at best. right? Yeah. Basically what they've said is you'll still have access to these things to download to your consoles, to your handhelds, whatever, yeah? But what they haven't said is, what they haven't said is, if you can't download it there and then, if you don't have the capacity on your consoles or on your handhelds to download all of these, just the sheer number of games that people sometimes have in their libraries, if you don't have the capability or the capacity to download all those files, what happens to them when the storefront closes? Do you still have access to them? Can you still download them?
Because that's the thing. You can't download them because where do you download them from?
Exactly. And this is the key difference between what's happening with Sony and what's happening in other places. Sony will turn around and say, we've let people download them. We give them 3 months' notice to download them. But the issue that I have on the consumer and the developer front, right? The issue I have is that digital rights ownership should be in perpetuity, right? It should be forever. Once you've bought it, that is yours for good. And that platform that you were able to access it on should be open for you to access your property.
Here's the thing, right? You're not buying it, are you? Let's get right down to it. On the PlayStation Digital Store, you're not buying squat.
No.
What you're basically doing is extended rental.
Yeah.
It's not ownership. You don't own a thing. Nintendo are exactly the same. Digitally, anyway. You don't own squat. Because if you can't separate it from the device it's been bought off, it's just a rental.
Yeah.
You're just renting the license. And that's not digital ownership. And people don't rent these things. They don't ask to rent these things.
Yeah.
They don't promote it like digital rental. You don't have rent list on the storefront, do you? You say it says buy list. And if you buy it, you own it. And, you didn't go to like, I don't know, what's it called? I can't remember the name of the shop now. That you rented movies from and DVDs and stuff.
Blockbuster.
Blockbuster. There we go. It was on the tip of my tongue. You didn't go and rent in the Blockbuster. It didn't say on like the DVDs buy list, did it? It said rent this.
Sometimes it did.
Oh yeah, but when it was like an X title, when you could literally buy it when they'd finished with it and they wanted a shot of it, you could rent those. You could buy those old titles. But there's no distinction here. You buy it, even though you are not buying it. At the end of the day.
See that, and there's a key thing, right? If I go onto Amazon Prime, for example, right?
Yeah.
I want to watch a film. I can rent that film and have a one-time watch license for it, right? Mm-hmm. I can watch it all the way through, and then I'm done, right? And then basically I'd have to pay to rent it again. Or I can pay more and basically buy the film, and then it's permanently on my Prime. I can download it, I can do whatever, yeah?
Yes.
But that should always then be, I use the operative word, should always then be accessible to me as my purchase on Amazon Prime, Prime Video.
It's true with Prime Video because I bought some CDs through Prime and Amazon, let's say in about 2007 when I started using Amazon, and I can still download those things.
Yeah.
So Amazon mean it when they say it.
Yeah. And that should be what happens with digital storefronts, right? Once you've purchased it, the digital rights ownership should be yours. It should be your property online, and so you can basically download it. Okay, there are various contractual issues that come with any property like that. You've got IP issues and various things like that. So you can't pirate it, you can't modify it, things like that. But that's part of the digital rights ownership.
There is the big elephant in the room you just said there.
Yeah.
In doing this, basically PlayStation have given carte blanche to emulators and to pirates, and even before this, it's been kind of a given that people who emulate games and pirate them are doing a better job at preserving games for posterity and for history than the actual people, not the people who made them, but the platform holders.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah.
No, it's not kinda. Let's remove the kinda. What's kinda sad is when you go to the corner shop and they're out of your favourite flavour of crisps. That's kind of sad. This is just tragic. Maybe not crisps. I'm not a big crisps eater. Flavoured water. It's all strawberry. I'm sick of strawberry. That's kind of sad. But this is really bad. This is genuinely awful.
And that I think is the key thing. You know, when we talk about ownership of games, when we talk about ownership of anything online, anything in the digital sphere, there are always going to be there's always going to be some legal argy-bargy that goes with it. But fundamentally, there is a belief that if you have purchased something online, that purchase is yours. That is the fundamental belief behind all digital purposes.
But going back to the other things, I've bought stuff from Bandcamp. I own it forever. I've bought stuff from Boomcat, which is a similar service, not quite as high profile. I own that forever now.
But here's the thing:
movies, if Sony, but video games can't wrap their head around that.
But this is the key. This is one other aspect of this argument, okay? Because we basically touched on the rights of the developer. Who, how can they then sell their games for that platform if they don't have the storefront to sell their games for that platform? Yeah. Because they can still make money off these games, and if they've got these games are made for these specific platforms.
Just for the sake of argument, I would love it if I could still access SSX, Dead Soul, SSX and Onimusha and Dead Space and stuff like this. If I had a place to do that. But because the platforms that they were made on don't exist anymore, tough chance. Not happening.
But on the PlayStation 3, they did have those PlayStation Classics.
They did, yeah. Not as many as I'd like, but they did have them, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, that was a growing library. That was actually a growing library of games for the PlayStation 3. And some of them now exist on the PlayStation 4. Not as many, but they do exist. But those will all... those will all be gone as well. Yeah. Right? But this is the thing. On the dev side, they have to. They then have to ask the fundamental question. Well, if we upload to a particular platform, is that game still ours, or is it now theirs to do with as they will, and we basically are just left in the lurch? On the consumer side, if we paid for this game, is that game then ours? As long as that platform is, alive and kicking.
This is legal chicken and egg, isn't it?
Until the company behind it decides to basically shut down that platform. But this is where the biggest legal argument, I think, comes into play. If Sony can't come up with a legal, an ethical and legal solution to all of this, right, it puts the entire, pretty much the entirety of digital rights ownership at risk.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realise just how big a bomb Sony has dropped here.
Yeah.
And I am kind of just cringing in a little bit of fear at just the ripple effects that can become tidal waves because of this. This is the pebble that turns into a tidal wave. This has to be... Sony's decision here is going to have much bigger long-term effects than I think anyone actually realises from the legal standpoint. Because all of those services that we've talked about, GarageBand, Bandcamp, Amazon Prime, Netflix, whatever, right? All of those services where you pay a subscription, maybe you can pay for something and then you own it, right? All of those services where you can buy a movie, buy a song, and then it's yours, right?
Yeah.
All of that digital rights ownership comes into question just because of what Sony has done. Because if a company like Sony, can't follow the basic principle of digital rights ownership, then you can't rely on any other company to do it either. Do you see where the legal grey areas start appearing?
Yeah.
What used to be clear and defined becomes massively muddy.
Yeah, I mean, I said it on the news trash. Honestly, I think this is the level of decision where it's so bad that they have to sort of do something positive, like really positive, like drop like a huge game announcement to sort of make people not think about it anymore. But I don't think that's enough.
No.
The rage that this has opened, honestly, we also talked about on this episode of News Trash how effectively they're going to have to make a Games Pass alternative. I think that genuine heat and hatred and annoyance and frustration and developers have soared down the river, and the amount of ill will one simple decision has made. This makes Don Matrick look like a rank amateur, the amount that this has backfired.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of anger and just sheer rage that's been pouring out because of this. This is going to be a very obscure reference, but the Sony execs probably need to form a circle of Cesar Facia.
I think
that is a very obscure. That is a very obscure Red Dwarf reference.
Oh, it's a Red Dwarf reference. Okay. Yeah. But effectively, I think this has forced their hand to create like a PlayStation archive service where you can access like all of their old titles, whether it's like a subscription service, which I would prefer it if it wasn't, or whether it was a service where you can download like an archive of old games. I think this backfire has forced their hands, because if they don't do anything, they're basically making their own, like burying themselves here. Yeah.
I mean, let me put it this way. I was all for buying a PlayStation 5, right? I was all for buying a PlayStation 5, and now I really couldn't give a crap.
I mean, I only want one because I've got a lot of games tied up in that system.
Yeah.
And I want to play them.
You know, thing is, I'm perfectly happy just keeping my PlayStation 4 Pro and using that and not buying anything for the PlayStation 5 because at the end of the day, I can no longer trust Sony with any of the digital games I have.
Yeah. Quite a few on the PlayStation 3 as well. Ones that I loved and they're gone forever.
Exactly. And, you know, we have a lot of digital games. Most games are released digitally these days. Most people buy games digitally these days. And if you can't trust the storefront that you're purchasing from, then there is no point in you owning that console.
Yeah, I think even if it comes down to them changing the sort of the front face, so they don't actually say you own it anymore, so they don't actually say buy this for whatever.
Yeah.
I think that might have to be part of this conversation that Sony are going to have themselves.
Yeah. I mean, if they did come up with a service, a kind of a retro service where you could basically buy these things at a discounted rate, yeah?
Yeah, it's called PlayStation Archive because its acronym is PSA.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of, I don't know why I said that. It just makes, it satisfies me.
It could be PlayStation's version of GOG.com, yeah?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So, GOG.com does like the old PC games and stuff like that, digs through archives of PC games, and you can find some really fantastic games on GOG.com for PC.
Yeah.
But
let's be honest, outside,
something like that.
Most games that aren't on cartridges, because that's like hardware, most games that were created and sold on disc existed digitally somewhere at some point in time.
Yeah.
And the fact that the platform is gone shouldn't mean that those games cease to exist, because that's kind of crapping on many, many hours' work. The love which was felt for these titles and so many other things. It can't just be like this, because honestly, this is really, really bad for the future of video games if this goes unchecked.
Just to wind back a little bit, I just want to make it clear to everyone, right? This is a lot of what we talked about here is based on current information, right? Sony have yet to announce what they are actually doing. If they're going to be doing anything as an alternative. They have yet to clarify any of the points that they've made regarding the closure of the stores and regarding, your access to games. This is our interpretation of what they've said, right?
And what they've done, but yeah.
And what they've done. And so, from our perspective, we see this as a massive legal challenge for Sony. And I honestly could see a lot of people taking Sony to court over this on the dev side and on the consumer side. I honestly don't know why. Well, I do, because finance, cash is involved. But you can always find a lawyer who wants to take a big corporation to court. There's always a lawyer who wants to take a big corporation to court because it's a paycheck day for them. Especially if they win. And right now, if Sony, with the information that we have right now, Sony made this decision ages ago, didn't tell the smaller indie devs. If the smaller indie devs grew together and basically got themselves a decent lawyer and basically took Sony to court, I think they'd have a good chance at actually winning.
Honestly, this is kind of curious, isn't it? I mean, Nintendo do this thing all of the time, but they've never flacked as much heat as Sony have for this. Nintendo are happy that Sony are getting all of this bad will and heat.
I think because what Nintendo does is basically release Mario All-Stars Collection.
It's even before that.
6 months.
It's even before that. Where's the Wii U store? Where's the Wii store? Don't exist anymore. Yeah. Those games don't exist anymore. They're gone. Removed. Nada. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not just... I mean, Microsoft are the only ones who are getting away with it, really.
Well, that's because Microsoft basically went, hey, there's all sorts that you can get access to on our store.
Yeah,
you want Xbox games? Here's some Xbox games. You want Xbox One games? Here's some Xbox One games. You want 360 games? There weren't that many good ones, but here's the bunch of 360 games.
Remarkable how prescient Nintendo have become at predicting what's going to happen. Because at the beginning of the PlayStation 4 Xbox One generation, we thought all of their decisions were, they're ridiculous. Who's going to watch TV on the bloody computer? Ridiculous. End of the generation. Everybody's doing it. Who's going to stream games and play digitally all the time? That's what they said at the beginning of the PlayStation 4 generation. Everybody's doing it. So,
did you mean Nintendo or Microsoft?
Microsoft are kind of leading the conversation. They're about a good
I was going to say...
Yeah, I might have worded it wrongly there. Sorry, but basically...
You said Nintendo, and I was thinking, when did Nintendo start doing streaming service? Why wasn't I told?
My point is basically that Microsoft, they needed it again there. Microsoft are basically about at least 5 years ahead of the conversation.
Yeah, yes they are.
And it's amazing how they continue to do that. But I think this sort of thing reveals how old world and old business video games platform holders are. Yeah. And massive mistakes are what reveal those shortcomings and reveal those short-sightedness. That short-sightedness.
Well, not only that, it also reveals a certain amount of greed on the part of these platform holders. You look at this whole aspect of encouraging fake fear of missing out, this artificial fear of missing out, which a lot of them do.
Fear of missing out. That's just what they do, isn't it? They make you do that. They have this FOMO. It's a marketing strategy.
Yeah, it is. But Nintendo, for example, their Mario All-Stars collection, which was Super Mario Sunshine, Super Mario All-Stars and Super Mario 64, was it?
There was 3 of them. I don't remember.
There was 3 of them, and it only got released like 6 months ago. And then they got, everyone got told you got a week left to download it off the Switch store.
There was a few Mario games that they did that with. There was that multiplayer Super Mario World one as well.
Yeah,
which you deleted.
And so that's manufacturing this fear of missing out.
Just on that case, those are physical games as well.
Yeah, those are physical games. But now, if you look at the copies of Mario All-Stars collection on the Switch, prices really shot up.
Oh, I imagine.
The digital sales went up by 276%. We reported on that on News Trash already, just because Nintendo came up with this idea for it. And that I can understand from a business perspective, that you're making more money, but I find the practice abhorrent. It's the main reason. This is actually one of the main reasons why I could only work in marketing and advertising for a short period of time, and then I left because I just did not like a lot of the practices that went in.
Yeah,
and this was during the 90s. Things are a lot more psychological these days.
Evil. Yeah. It's called a cat a cat rub. It's evil. It's an evil cat called Satan.
But yeah, on the subject of Sony and digital rights ownership, I think that when it comes to games preservation, I think that is not the primary argument that people should be looking at. And it's not the primary aspect of this that people should be looking at.
It's a big part of it, though. Big part.
I think it's a big part of it, but I don't think it's the major thing that we need to focus on with this.
Well, yeah, the big question is, do I own what I'm buying?
Yeah, and that is the fundamental question at the heart of all of this. Do I actually own what I'm paying for? If I pay for this game, do I own this game? Can I keep this game forever?
Yeah, I mean, Xbox get away with it with Game Pass because they don't make any illusions that the fact that you don't own this, you're just renting it, basically.
Yeah, and Netflix do the same. Netflix don't make any illusions to that. They basically say, you're paying a Netflix subscription, yeah, you can download it, but you don't actually own this.
Yeah, but Sony, nothing of the sort. And I think they're going to be bit on the arse hard, or they're going to have to basically have the hand forced.
Sony have got a lot of questions to answer right now. A lot more than I think than most of the audience watching this whole drama unfold. I think there are a lot more questions than even they realise.
Yeah,
and I think that a lot of...
if they want to keep the goodwill, they really have to act and swiftly.
Yeah. I think that the video games press needs to focus on the fundamental issues.
The video game press is given it entirely too much credit. They basically print PR statements which companies give them. That's their function in the world right now.
Yeah, but I think that they need to focus on the fundamental issues that this whole scenario, the fundamental issues that this whole thing raises, which is a fundamental issue to do with the digital rights ownership and who actually owns what.
Well, let's leave it there, because this has been a muchos heavios episode.
Yeah. Yes, it has. Yes, it has.
I know
now it's time
Spanish.
for the belly dance.
I know
belly
Spanish,
dance, Rob.
yeah.
Belly dance.
Well, usually when it's a heavy bit in a heavy episode, there's a website I use called Pixabay. It's like an free archive. I just get an image of a sausage being chopped, and I don't think the sausage being chopped is going to really fit this.
No, Sony might take that as a threat and go after you.
Maybe. But yeah. Check us on Patreon. We've got all sorts of things over there. That's patreon.com/The Geek Show. Check us out on social media. There'll be a link. There's a little image in one of the corners where you can find the user name to follow us there. Or if you're listening to this on the podcast provider, thanks. Thank you very much. Please give us a rating wherever you get your podcasts from, because honestly, it's the best thing you can do for a small outlet like us who keep on picking fights with big people.
So, if you like the video, give us a thumb, a sub, or a bell. Okay, that's all from Impossible Mission 4 this week. Join us next time for more video game chit-chat. Until then, thanks a lot for watching.